do spiritual warfare online. They're good at it. They're trained in it.
IPS is just sharing the truth.
Yeah, respect to the Infinite Plane Society.
The Auto Hoaxer Revolution.
Auto Hoaxer. Auto Hoaxer.
The Auto Hoaxer Revolution.
Auto Hoaxer.
All right, it is Friday, August 25th, 2023. We are live. Infinite Plane Radio, that's MVP, the Hardware Vandal, the Auto Hoaxer Revolution. There's really nothing like
taken over Auto Hoax.
the music of MVP, the Hardware Vandal, and you're going to hear more of it as we move along. You know, we've been through some ups and downs as a think tank, and they just shot 3 of our YouTube channels, and as you notice, it doesn't really affect us anymore. It's like Godzilla, just bounces off. Joined by AJ206, Nicotrauma737. We were just hanging out in the Discord chat. I really want to make it a habit to hang out in the Discord chat rooms and chat it up in the maybe half hour leading up to our live streams. Maybe even after. If I have time, we might just hang out there after. Yep, Rofkin is still up. I'm actually putting archives on Rofkin, Odyssey, Spotify, all the podcast platforms, Apple. Just go to ips.monster. You can't miss us. Just because they shoot our YouTube channel down every couple of days doesn't really mean anything. I mean, for a lot of people, it used to mean the end. They used to destroy channels left and right, but we adapted right away before they really brought out the big anti-flat earth, anti-conspiracy theory agenda, which I talked about this briefly last night. The whole point of the pandemic, the plandemic, the scamdemic, from the very beginning was censoring thought crimes, mind viruses. It was never about your health, ever. It was never about that. It was always about setting the stage for the ultimate curation of the human mind as they move us into a singular worldview that is thoroughly filtered and screened. Joined by Thirst for Truth, P Trippa 103, the HBIC, Roxy W. Thank you for joining. We have individuals coming in from, looks like Twitch. And as I said before, we are going to be expanding onto many more platforms in the coming days, weeks. And I haven't been speaking very much openly live about some of the newer developments because there are so many saboteurs out there lurking. But next week's going to be very busy. My own video project, the Auto Hoaxology 101, and another event or situation has arisen that's going to be taking place at the beginning of next month. All of it's going to be really good for the channel because this channel, this think tank, isn't about one single thing, but it's actually an open platform, and we've been sourcing intel, human intel, on a lot of topics from a truly outside, what I call off-world stage perspective for a long time. And we're getting pretty good. We're rather practiced at deconstructing fake news. And our level of skepticism is 100% warranted. As much as the powers that be would want you to feel guilty for being a non-believer, I think if you're a believer, you're kind of by definition, I hate to say it, but something of a dupe. You're setting yourself up. All right, let's go ahead and start going through some of the notes. Speaking of dupes, let me read this. This is a post from Oliver Anthony. Now, Oliver Anthony is this musician. He's got the beard, he's got the banjo in the woods, he's authentic, everybody loves him. And he's been he's been looked at as like the voice of America. Like, this is our voice. And the fact of it is, it was less organic than it appeared to be. He was very much propped up by Joe Rogan, and I even have a clip of that. Not that it discredits his music or says his music isn't good, but if something goes mainstream and viral, it's because they want it to. It doesn't take away from how quality it is or the quality of it necessarily, but it's important to keep in mind, what are they trying to get you to think? So listen to Joe Rogan here talking about how much he relates to the guy's, working man type of vibe. And remember, the guy is a
Substance abuse
he's a factory worker in Farmville. Now, here's Joe Rogan, and he's getting kind of sad in his voice, a little crack in his voice here. You'll hear it, where he's talking about how much he relates to the anguish and emotion in the voice of this singer.
the normal chaos and hit rock bottom, and like I don't want to speak for him. I don't know what he actually said, but it was something to the tune of, "Please God, if you could straighten my life, if you could just straighten my life out, I will dedicate myself to you, and I'll be on the right track." And then 30 days later, he's clean, and he hits with this insane song. Do you know the song?
Yeah.
Play that song, Jamie, because this song is insane.
Now, was he really pleading to God to be saved in a song where he's calling welfare recipients 5 foot tall, 300-pound, useless eaters? I mean, I don't know about that. But that's Joe Rogan hyping it up, and in addition to this, there was a individual who apparently helped catapult him to a lot of people. It's good marketing. I'm saying it's good marketing, but the fact that it's not 100% organic matters. I mean, just because Joe Rogan promotes you doesn't mean that you're not organic. Maybe you are real and authentic, but I find it very questionable. AJ206 says, "It's been 7 years since I found you, IPS. Thank you for all the hard work in keeping up with the infinite plan." Oh yes, I have a plan for 30 years. And I never really even started counting down yet. Like, I see this thing as a long-term project, and it's got a definite trajectory. And I know what it looks like in its optimal form. I know what my schedule will be like, and I've been, not slowly, I've been making haste, slowly. It's been just kind of, 3 steps forward, 1 step back. It's just been up and down, but we have been reaching the point where we're fully operational. And I live in a 1-minute city. I don't have to do any commuting. I just walk across the street. Everything I need is within a quarter mile, which is very important because I don't want any form of interruptions once we get this thing moving full steam. Continuing here. Pete Trippa says, "Story as old as time, pledging your life or making a deal with the devil." Interesting. But the thing is, he claims he turned down an $8 million deal. He's got a song called "I Don't Got a Dollar." I think his Twitter account ain't got a dollar. But now he ain't got $8 million. It's like, why couldn't you just take the contract, take the deal, and then give $1 to 8 million of your listeners so they all have one? But now, Oliver Anthony, who's become something of a symbol on the right, and to me, I don't relate to the grievance politics. That's a lot of what it sounds like. But listen to this. Oliver Anthony blasts Fox News. See, they thought they had a mascot in him. He blasts them for using his song at the GOP debate called North of Richmond, and it made him crack up. He said, quote, "It's aggravating seeing people on conservative news trying to identify with me like I'm one of them. It's aggravating seeing certain musicians and politicians act like we're buddies, like we're fighting the same struggle." That's what I found so odd about Joe Rogan. It's like Joe Rogan is the most popular podcaster, very successful, and I'm not saying he didn't work hard and doesn't work hard. The guy literally puts his balls in freezing cold water every morning to prove what a man he is. He does that. He dunks himself in an ice bath every morning. So I'm not trying to detract from Rogan's work. I'm just saying I don't know if he is struggling the same way that a factory worker in Farmville who doesn't have a dollar does. But even that didn't seem all that believable to me, because I see musicians on the street all the time, and they don't have what looks to be a very expensive piece like he does. It wasn't like he was a banjo in the woods, like that Deliverance guy that looks like Joe Biden. No, actually, it looks like a studio creation. Anyway, he says, "It was funny seeing the song at the presidential debate because I wrote the song about those people." So the Richmond, north of Richmond, is about Fox-type people, conservatives. Now, this one here really surprised me. This is from February 24th, 2022, which was the day that the war started, the quote war. As an American, I support and stand with Joe Biden. He has changed this country for the better. Those who live off government assistance are parasites to this country. Joe is what a true American is, hardworking and not taking handouts. This can't be real. I'm sorry. I mean, this was shared by Owen Benjamin, who's been doing some very interesting takes on Oliver Anthony's song. Honestly, he's a comedian. He's not one of these government jesters that's there to maintain control over thoughts and ideas, but he's actually trying to make people laugh based on what's objectively funny. And calling out and mocking shills is something that I think is worthwhile, and I do appreciate comedians calling out and mocking things that are eminently mockable, like NASA or Oliver Anthony in this case. But if you don't follow Owen Benjamin, he shared this along with a video, and I think he might have assumed this one is real. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. But anyway, his take on Oliver Anthony's music is actually funny. And I can't remember the last time Dave Chappelle made me laugh. Like, I think it's a conspiracy theory that Dave Chappelle was actually ever funny. If you laughed at him or you remember him being funny, then it feels like a Mandela effect. It's because he was only funny to you before because you were still brainwashed. That's why. You got to take a lot of blue pills. You got to hit the blue pill. You got to snort some chopped up blue pill, hit the blue pill crack pipe a few times just to find that stuff funny, because it's all quite literally the new 2 minutes of hate. It's the way the government tells you through its quote comedians, especially the late night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon. Their whole purpose is to make sure that you hate who they want you to hate. I don't think those shows have ever been funny. Going through some comments, Salty Siren says, who else is ready for that $750 weekly unemployment check for lockdown? See, that doesn't sound bad to me now. Because what are you going to do? They're saying on the right, I will not comply. People are getting ready to not comply. Kerry Lake's getting ready to not comply. It's like, am I going to not comply by going along with this groupthink? It's not organic. The anti-mask, the anti-vax, the anti-lockdown, it's all going to be controlled opposition. I'm not going to march behind the QAnon shaman. I'm just not. I'm not going to get behind any shills. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to make videos and talk about these things. We'll probably work on South Pole and do some animation. Like, I think instead of engaging in their mind war, I want to focus more on creative enterprises. I'm just not looking forward to the contrived revolt, to the well, I mean, it's obviously a control freak agenda. I'm not siding with it, and I understand the need to rebel or at least be a conscientious objector. But the way that you, in my view, the way that you object to the Psy-War is you mentally separate yourself from the world stage and you see it for what it is. You transcend it. The astronauts claim that they go so high they can see the whole world, they have the overview effect, and it's a cognitive shift because now they see the great oneness of it all. Well, that's fake. They're if anything, they're below ground. Space is the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood or a Bollywood basement. But we truly do have that overview effect, the off-world stage perspective. And for that, you don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to go screaming at any politician. It's like screaming at a movie screen. Okay, moving on here. Elephant Tusk says, remember that show Fear Factor hosted by Rogan? A lot of it centered around bugs. Like a lot of predictive programming for the eating of bugs agenda. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Most of the show Fear Factor wasn't about fear. It was about overcoming your natural physical disgust at eating gross things. Like, that's not about courage. That's about having, I guess, no standards. You'll do anything for money. He should bring that show back. Fear Factor. See who will eat bugs to get on his show. Like, what do you think someone like Alex Stein would eat to get on Joe Rogan's show? What wouldn't he eat? Would be the shorter list. Pete Trippa says, who doesn't like free money though? At this point, more fake than ever before. They printed trillions the last few years out of thin air. I can kind of see your point there. My main issue with it is that we're looking at a communist takeover of the free market. They're like, oh, you don't need to shop, you don't make choices anymore, you don't need to decide which brand has the better value or the better logo. Nope, you're just going to walk down the aisle, grab what you need, and go. Shopping is important. Shopping is the way that you exercise agency as a consumer, and this is where you influence who wins in the marketplace and you help the development of better products. They want to get rid of that. They want to have one size fits all, chicken in every pot, crack pipe in every pocket, uniformity. And that's why 2020, if you notice, it was spread by a uniform. They use fashion. I talk about it quite a bit. The mask was a fashion statement, not to protect you, but it was a fashion statement that was used to coerce people into groupthink. They used fashion to spread a fascist agenda. I went through basic training, many of you have. It's the same thing. Uniforms, uniformity, conformity, groupthink, removing independent action, independent thought. But now we're practiced. Now we are rehearsed. Joined by A. Woodward, 7899. Thanks for joining. Commenter Suzette Ann says, they take a lot out of my paycheck. I don't want to be locked down for any reason, though. Yeah, I don't like the disruptions. That's my main issue. I don't like the fact that they're disrupting people under false pretenses. But then again, this has always been the case. We just happen to be aware of it this time. I mean, look at the way they changed the laws and the rules and the regulations because of terrorism, because of mass shooters, because of climate change. Like, when have they not totally warped and newsbent our reality every day? It's like getting mad at the weather at this point. So we figured out that we actually do have gods. And they do control reality. But we also figured out that they are basically people using monopolies over media to create monopolies over worldview to basically functionally turn the world into a global cult, a doomsday cult. Intergenerational Stockholm Syndrome, because we were all born into a circular firing squad where all of the most powerful people in the world have the ability to blow us up at the push of a button. Now, if you look at the screen, this is, note the date, July 27th, 2023, from The Guardian. The era of global boiling has arrived, says UN chief. Global boiling. You know, we all laughed at this, right? Like, oh, global boiling, that's silly. There's just no way. What does that even mean? The ocean's going to boil? Now, I'm saying this is predictive programming. Let's go ahead and look at the following. CBS News yesterday, the gridlock would have left us there when the firestorm came, said one witness. Quote, I would have to tell my children to jump into the ocean as well and be boiled alive. Or we could have died from the smoke inhalation and roasted in the car. So here we have it from Maui, boiled alive in Maui, in the era of global boiling. You see how they set us up for this? The first time I noticed concurrent programming, and this is not the same as predictive programming, it is, but it's when you notice it happening real time, where it's not like a seed planted 5 years before. No, it's like yesterday or today's entertainment matches with tomorrow's news, which is actually how it always is. And in this case, I'm watching a movie called Geostorm, and it's about the space station now controls the weather, and it catches a virus, and now there's fire-nados all over the place. So the movie opens up with fire-nados, and I'm thinking this is just silly. This is like Sharknado. This is climate exploitation, cli-fi. Climate fiction is what they actually call it in the publishing industry, cli-fi. Cli-fi is the new sci-fi. If your sci-fi does not contain cli-fi, you're not going to get into Netflix. It's the fictional universe they exist in, is the post-global warming reset world. But then on the news, I'm seeing fire-nados in California. This is around the time of the PGE fires. Now, I'm not saying fire-nados don't exist. Yes, they can be created. These are effects. But it went viral as a new thing because it had never been reported upon widely. And they were trying to make it seem like This is one of these new things that just suddenly happened because climate change is getting worse and it's climate chaos now. So the fire NATOs were being introduced to the public in the news at the same time that all the red boxes were promoting a movie called Geostorm that opens up with fire NATOs. Coincidence? Synchronicity? Magic? No. It's concurrent programming. By the way, if you haven't joined the Discord, the link is at ips.live. People are starting to post art. We have this, I don't have the animated version here, but I'll get it. It's the IPS-19 virus has actually been isolated. Posted by Violet, who's actually the memetic engineer who made this one. We isolated this before they ever isolated the other thing. In fact, they haven't yet, have they? Roxy W says, would you host Coast to Coast AM with Tim Osman? We're much bigger than Coast to Coast. Not in terms of numbers, but they're going coast to coast. We're like infinite in all directions. But I like the format, and I do want to get more involved with guests. In fact, I have a guest for next week, Woo's News, who's done more than anyone to break down the January 6th hoax. So if you're waiting for me to talk to Woo's News, that was supposed to happen last week, but he's deep in an editing project right now, and I'd rather have him introduce it live. And it'll be nice because we'll be able to discuss his work, and then you in the chat can ask questions as well. Okay, let's continue. Yesterday, the whole thing was about Trump's mugshot. And this mugshot is not a small deal. I had mentioned in the Discord server before, it's like this is Machiavellian marketing. They know that this is going to blow him up in a very positive way. This is going to make Ron DeSantis jealous. And as I predicted, I even said this. I said, mugshots are going to be the new swatting. Because you know how every right-winger gets swatted. You know, Tim Pool fakes a swatting every few weeks. Marjorie Taylor Greene fakes swattings. She really exaggerates it. Steve Bannon fakes swattings. Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, had I opened the door with my AR-15, I would be dead. As though you can call a number and the SWAT team will show up with their helicopters rappelling in, APC armored personnel carriers, full body armor, guns blazing. It doesn't work like that. And the way she would be interacting with them is they would contact her security. I mean, she's a U.S. representative. It wouldn't work like that. By the way, not only that, but she's a U.S. representative who's blackmailed by Ollie Alexander, who claims that he is America's, I believe he called himself this recently too, because he got America's shaman. He calls himself, what's the one in the Matrix? You know, the person they go to who can kind of see the future, the Oracle. He calls himself America's Oracle. We're talking about groomer Alex Stein, friend of groomer Nick Fuentes. I'm just such gross people. I guess that's just politics, though. It's always been that way. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead and catch up on a couple of things here. We were talking about Donald Trump's mugshot. Okay, here's something. Lord Loomer organized this rally to promote Trump. And I was talking about how, yeah, the right-wingers, they all get swatted. That's what it was. Yeah, and then now they're all getting their mugshots. And Marjorie Taylor Greene actually put herself on her own mugshot. Like, fear of missing out. But here we have Laura Loomer organized this rally in favor of Trump. And here there's a live stream, and they're talking to Roger Stone. And in the background, you can see this image of Donald Trump's face. And it looks like there's a crosshair on it. A lot of ominous imagery has just been showing up all around. And I'll show you where it's leading, I think. First, mugshots released of Georgia's co-conspirators, and the presidents are expected tomorrow. And then you look at the way they frame it. The mugshot heard around the world. National Pulse. Again, shot heard around the world. Mugshot heard around the world. Very ominous. They're always dropping these little hints there. And then there's this interesting bit someone had mentioned on Twitter. We were talking about the Martin Luther King's 55th anniversary of his suicide being the date that Trump was arraigned, which is, of course, 4/4. And we had correlated the final speech at the mountaintop talking about the promised land with MAGA, the promised land. And this is just part of this templating. Trump has been turned into some kind of a martyr, at least for the right. I mean, the world sees him as a villain. They really do. A lot of people I know really think this guy needs to be in jail. They see him as a mafia don. They see him as a bad guy. Look what The Atlantic put out. He wants you to look at him. Trump's mugshot was supposed to be an exercise in humility. He turned it into a threat. And if you look at the face, yeah, he does look very threatening, by design. I wonder how long he rehearsed this for, how many takes did they give him. But I certainly think that this is a deliberate message. Obviously, it's meant to be iconic. They totally hyped it up. They're already making money off it. It's already on t-shirts, etc. But again, mugshot, headshot, this is meant to look this way, is my point. And you see overreaction from the left, and the right is loving it. This is how they want their leader looking. It makes him look strong to them. But anyway, I'm just pointing it out that this mugshot thing could be a prelude to something. And he has been overlapped with Christ, and we talked about that back in April. But after Sound of Freedom, it really became about Moses. And so the connection with MLK's assassination day would correlate with Moses and the Promised Land, MAGA land thing. So I'm just saying that there's some kind of storyline here that's been building for months and months that all establishes Trump as some kind of a martyr. Now listen to what John Bolton said. Trump's former national security advisor. He said, quote, "He could have smiled. He could have looked benign. Instead, he looks like a thug. I think it's intended to be a sign of intimidation against prosecutors and the judges. You cannot believe in law and order philosophy and say it applies to everybody except Donald Trump." So that would be someone who would understand the meaning of the message. Doesn't shock me at all. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory that I necessarily subscribe to, but there is this theory that Martin Luther King didn't die, which would be typical for the PSYOP entertainment complex. They don't actually kill their martyrs. But some believe that he had been repurposed and turned into Don King. And here's Don King with Donald Trump. And I just thought the names, Don and King, kind of stood out in this context from a Metascript perspective. And if you want to look at this as a movie superimposed over reality with a bunch of actors who are recast and reused, it's very on brand for how they operate, if it were the case. The names perfectly fit. And these names mean everything. I mean, I done a breakdown of the Alabama event with Reggie King. Reggie means, of course, the Reggie Gray, which means king, which really called back for many people the Rodney King riots, where Reginald, again means king. Denny got hit in the head, and he's 33. Rodney King got hit 33 times with a baton. I mean, it's pretty consistent. Now, I got called a sheep. I got called a sheep by a truther, and it's because apparently I'm not scared of 5G towers enough. And he shared an image of a literal sheep with its head in a bucket. And I was, compared to this because I don't believe in, or I'm not scared of chemtrails. And I was just pointing out that when you call someone a sheep, you're implying that they're scared. But I'm not the one scared of chemtrails. I'm not scared of 5G towers. In fact, there's a 5G tower right outside my window. So how can I be a sheep if I'm not the one that's scared, is my question. Like, I'm not the one afraid of new technology. I'm not superstitious whatsoever. So I'm just saying that truthers are actually a bunch of sheep. And ask yourself, are you promoting fear? Are you addicted to fear porn? Fear porn is a mind killer. It really is. This addiction to doomsday, it's all going to end. That is part of their PSYOP. They want you hooked into these narratives that limit time, limit space. It's all coming to an end. It's all by design. Roxy W says, I saw Reginald Denny get attacked, lots of blood. Yeah, that was brutal, being pulled out of the truck. Although there are some takes on it. I think Miles Mathis has a pretty good one. That might lead you to think it's kind of hoaxy. There's a news reporter who actually has the brick they supposedly hit him with, and there's your clue, the brick. Very Masony. I think they could easily fake it with a foam brick. I mean, you can get pieces of concrete that look just as real as concrete, but just pure foam. I mean, movie props, movie magic have created our false worldview forever. Just in, Europe's Digital Services Act is now in force. Large online platforms risk heavy fines if they fail to police hate speech and disinformation more aggressively. Big tech. You see, what they're doing is they're using big tech to execute big government. The world's biggest digital companies will have nowhere to hide starting Friday when the toughest EU rules on online content since social media first burst onto the scene enter into force. This landmark law, and this is from disclose.tv, but this is from RTL today, that this is part of European Union's legal arsenal deployed to bring tech companies to heel and enforce order, and listen to what they call it. They want to enforce order in what officials describe as an online Wild West. Now, for the last year plus, we've been talking about the West. The Titanic is a metaphor for the West. The runaway train that goes the derailment scenarios that were happening earlier this year, starting in Ohio. But the runaway train is the West, capitalism. It's our concept of property ownership. It's our system of free markets, which are somehow described as being unfairly, I guess, unfairly stacked in favor of a privileged group versus the oppressed group. Like, they basically have this criticism of the West, that the West needs to go, that the West is toxic. Like, look at Westworld, the movie Westworld, the whole series, and at the end, the enslaved synths break free and burn it down. Or you have Game of Thrones, where Westeros burns at the end. There's been these reoccurring themes of the West. At the same time, you had Putin and his Satan II rocket talking about the Antichrist West. So this characterization of the West as being the problem for not only what's going on in space, which is, again, why when Bezos went to space, he wore a cowboy hat. Then he sent his friend William Shatner up to space, because space is the final frontier. They're trying to correlate space and the frontier with space cowboys, so they can say we cannot approach space and the future like it's the Wild West. We cannot let the richest Westerners dominate mankind's future. So this is the point where the West is brought to heel. And it even says it here, bring tech companies to heel, enforce order to put an end to the Wild West. Salty says it's been 3 years since we've been talking about the West. Yeah, you're right. And when Ye's life was falling apart, we even brought it up then, that they were characterizing the Wests and how his nuclear family was broken apart. And then how he lost his thing and he was basically this pariah. But we were watching Ye West's world burn, as Westworld burned, as Westeros burned, as the movie Don't Look Up showed the Titanic, which is the West, as the Earth in that particular movie, but it was just a retelling of it burning. So this is a reoccurring theme, is what I'm pointing out, and here we're seeing it executing. Right now in front of us, they're actually executing this agenda right in front of our faces, which is let's shut down the Wild West, which I think means pretty much anything pro-freedom. I mean, freedom's unsustainable. Got to put rate limits on how many tweets you can read. You know, if you accept that, and we had no choice, but They put rate limits on you on how many tweets you can read. They're trying to get you used to the idea that everything should be limited. Every breath you take, every step you take. Got a message from Alex over on Rofkin. He says, Tim, I saw the movie Strays last night. In one of the opening scenes, they show a piece of graffiti art clear as day, the only graffiti that showed in the film. And it says PSYOP. Above it is a mushroom cloud, like the atomic bomb. So here we have atomic bomb predictive programming in the movie Strays, about the stray dogs. But it says PSYOP. Now, you know what's interesting about this? Is Call of Duty had some predictive programming for the virus. Oh no, it was The Division. Tom Clancy's The Division. And it had the word hoax. Very interesting. Like, what is this? Is this how they let them know? Like, you're at your Illuminati meeting, they can't say it outright. It's like, hey everyone, watch the new Strays movie, pay attention at 33 minutes in. So you know. Like, there's got to be some kind of meaning to this, because this is definitely foreshadowing. And it's perplexing when you consider that most of the predictive programming is just going by unnoticed, until you realize that they don't need your conscious approval to brainwash you. They are boring neural pathways in your subconscious mind, whether you want them to or not. Every time you face that screen. I got a post from Violet who says, in the Oppenheimer movie, there was a fishbowl that represented the 33-pound sphere of plutonium. They pull it out when they start making the gadget. They show them fill it up as the movie goes until it's full, and then they test the explosion. Fascinating. So we have a 33. I may just go watch Oppenheimer tomorrow. I watched Barbie. I did a review. It's about the plastic doll becoming a real woman. It's about Isis becoming unveiled, the introduction of the new goddess, the virgin becomes the whore of Babylon. We talked about the meaning of the portal, the membrane. Babylon means gates, idol worship, and how the actress Margot Robbie comes from the movie Babylon, written by a Satanist who actually did a movie with the original Scarlet Woman from the actual Babylon working in 1946. So we talked about how what they did is they basically packaged the new Aeon goddess and handed it as a toy to the next generation. They are changing everything. And I think the connection between Oppenheimer and Barbie may also be this: the destruction of the nuclear family. Because when Barbie arrives as a monolith in the movie and all the little girls start bashing the heads of their baby dolls against the ground, what you're seeing is the advent of this liberated woman no longer confined to the kitchen or motherhood. And then you're seeing Kens, who are just non-procreative entities. They don't have anything. And unlike Barbie, they don't become real men. And my point of it is, Ken is described as superfluous. And in the new age, I think that is going to be the case. I mean, masculinity, for example, has been deemed toxic. Going through some comments here. Lean Dion says, Strays has Fox. They're doing voice dog characters released during the dog days. Interesting. Yeah, Jamie Foxx, interesting character. They cloned Tyrone, stars Jamie Foxx, and it has everything to do with the last 6 or 7 months of PSYOPs, beginning with Tyree Nichols. Tyrone, Tyree, clone means resurrection in a similar kind of way. You're talking about someone coming back from the dead. Jamie Foxx died and came back from the dead earlier this year, and there were rumors he was cloned because some people did not understand camera focal length, and then the movie comes out. They cloned Tyrone. I may check out the movie, though. Okay, let's continue. I'll have to watch Oppenheimer. I do think that, again, the destruction of the nuclear family may be a part of it, because in this new age, it's down with the patriarchy, but it's also down with the matriarchy. They're getting rid of fathers and mothers. You see, I think the right wing got it wrong, and I put in my review that there aren't enough Ben Shapiro's in the world to burn all these Barbie dolls, because that's what he did. He got mad and he burned a Barbie doll. He got mad because it's feminism. But it's really not just about that. It's really about destroying archetypes of the mother and father, and the new God is being introduced. So it's the New Age. That's what the New Age has always been about. And it's not a coincidence that this Babylon working, where they summon this thing, this New Age goddess, in 1946, is when the nuclear bombs were tested. And again, the connections are deep. You got Bikini Island nuke testing. That's where the term bombshell got ascribed to women of a certain look. And then you have Barbie as a bombshell. And as this again correlates to Barbie as Babylon. And she and Jack Parsons, Babylon and the Beast in 1946. And what happened to Jack Parsons? He blew up. He blew up in his laboratory. A bomb. And I'm saying it's all euphemism, because he probably didn't even die. Joined by Adaptivia. Thank you for joining. Elephant Tusk said, I had no idea Ben Shapiro was a renowned violinist. I don't know much about him. I do listen to his podcast, because in terms of his opinions, he is a product of his environment. He's very insulated, and it's a fascinating take. Like, I listen to everybody. I listen to disinformation. I listen to the misinformed, because I know where they're coming from and it's useful. But I've always assumed he was like the secret love child of Ann Coulter and Sean Hannity. Like, he's definitely half of each of them. There's nothing beyond that. I mean, there's a little bit of, I don't know. He doesn't really strike me as someone who's strayed too far from his ideological roots. So for him to go burn a Barbie doll is just very much on brand. But this faux conservative outrage is what I'm pointing out. Vivek Ramaswamy calls climate change a hoax during the debate. Yeah, not only that, but he even said that more people are harmed by the regulation that climate change imposes than by climate change itself, which is pretty good. But he didn't say that NASA's fake, that NOAA is lying, and that the climate change hoax wouldn't exist without all these agencies that you could name. But they can't do that. They can't tear down the stage that they're on. Only we can do that. Okay, moving on. I want to go through my Twitter feed. There's been a lot of things on my Twitter feed worth attending to here, but if you message me on any of these other platforms, I do get the comments. Evolvement posted this, I believe, in Discord. The Russian general who got killed 2 days ago led an aborted mutiny against Russia's armed forces in June. Trump is accused of having incited a coup. Foreshadowing? Yeah, there's definitely a case to be made for that. A former Prime Minister of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, said, quote, "Prisoners against zombies. New thriller movie coming soon." So he's got jokes. This is a meme. Prisoners versus zombies. It's Donald Trump versus Biden. But the Biden zombie is ghastly. They actually put a Walking Dead style face over Biden. It's all about memes when you get down to it. It's all meme warfare, because it's about mind control, thought control, and memes are units of cultural information, memories, memorable, transmissible. Okay, let's see here. We're talking about Oliver Anthony being non-organic. Yeah, who really thought that he was completely organic and he just happened to catch the attention of a Joe Rogan? And I don't mean to be pessimistic, but the term virality is a misnomer. I don't believe anything goes viral unless they want it to. We have seen censorship targeting us at an individual level. I mean, you got to see how they specifically wiped away certain features from my other Twitter account, which is why I updated it. My new Twitter account is Auto Hoaxology. If you still follow my real Tim Osman, I changed it to IPS Chatbot, and all of those tweets are generated by Claude and ChatGPT. I'm not writing those tweets. It's a bot at this point. Okay, so there's a lot going on right now with General Flynn. They're reigniting the Q movement. So you have this Awaken America. And a couple of things about it. One, they always have the red and the blue, the left and the right, the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. It's led by Michael Flynn, General Flynn, who's I would say he's an insider to the whole Q movement. And in fact, many believe he is Q or close to Q. But he's been really big with fusing Trumpism with Christianity and with helping to promulgate the digital soldier thing. So you have all these QAnoners who are high on hopium just retweeting and retweeting till their thumbs are sore. Yeah, that's General Flynn's digital army. And my contention is that the QAnon movement is manufactured. It's a PSYOP movement meant to be, and has become, in fact, for all intents and purposes, the domestic equivalent of radical Islam. The QAnon radicals are the new Quran radicals. It's the same thing. Great Satan, deep state, no difference. And you'll notice that the MAGA ban and the Taliban both have the same values, the same attitude towards women without their hair covered at the gym, etc. We've seen it all. Now, my point being, General Flynn is out on the road. Here he is in Las Vegas. And they're talking about how Donald Trump is working with Jesus King, and there's going to be some kind of new apostolic reformation. And they're not even talking about JFK anymore, by the way.
People in the back, let me hear you. Jesus is king, ladies and gentlemen. President Donald J. Trump is who we've voted for, and General Flynn is America's general.
So we got America's general, America's shaman, and America's oracle. You got Q Shaman, Ollie Alexander, and General Flynn. And now you got the Trumps there. You got Eric Trump. And behind them is a large portrait of Donald Trump with lightning. And there's a big Q above Trump's head in lightning. But they put a Trump 2024 flag over the Q. So they're kind of hiding it. But these individuals are very disingenuous. At one of their meetings, they were in front of a Q card, like the Q from the playing card deck. And next to it was I think it was a 7, so it made 17. They're always throwing their signs out there. Yeah, we are live. If you want to call in, the number is on the screen. It's 505-349-0420. I may even have some voicemails to get to. Yeah, let me go ahead and play some voicemails. Okay, here we go.
Okay, I think you've redirected the lines. Darn it.
Okay, he must have missed the call. Okay, here we go. It's not redirected anymore. I do get the calls directly now.
Oh, good. I get to leave a message. Hey, this is Mark. Russ, I just called. I'm writing too much, I think, and on your chat thing, and I'm just letting you know I've been beat up really bad. So I'm just barely hanging on. But I would love to talk. Tomorrow I'll call this line and...
Okay, what I'll do, I just, the caller who's been trying to reach out to me here, I got your messages on Substack. And if you want to call back, Infinite Plane Saturday or Catch Me Tonight, regardless, you probably just got an SMS from me. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Tim, I don't know if this is your number. It's Pete Trippa. So the DEW weapon stuff and the climate change stuff is becoming all mixed up with geoengineering and everything like that. I just wanted to ask if you had spent the time looking at, there's patents, like there's patents for, weather modification stuff. So it's not the, dumping stuff in the air. It's like actual radar, right? Like that's, or some sort of like, whatever radar concept that affects weather patterns, creating tornadoes. Boston has been having tornado warnings. That never happens. And I don't believe in climate change, but like it's kind of crazy. So something to dive into. I would just want to push you to do that, and like maybe there's more there, and I I want to keep an open mind. So all right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, so my take on that with patents, because people will say, well, there's patents for geoengineering, there's patents for implantable mind control devices, there's patents for 5G, human bug zappers, etc. And one point that I like to bring up is that you can indict a ham sandwich, you can file a lawsuit against anybody for anything, and anything can be patented. That's kind of my point. Doesn't mean it exists, doesn't mean it can do what it claims necessarily, but just because it's patented doesn't necessarily mean anything. And what I think what we saw in Maui is the purposeful introduction of a misleading narrative to hide the fact that it was a closed movie set. That there was a psychological operation on the same scale as the Vegas one, presided over by the chief of police in Vegas, now chief of police in Maui, also the coroner. And what it looks like to me is they want to blame climate change, which is an easy sell for half the population, but they're also going to blame Joe Biden, and some kind of intentionality is going to be asserted here. And one way they can do it, and this has been a theme on the right since the PGA fires, is Jewish space lasers, or now Chinese space lasers. You notice they changed. They were Jewish, now they're Chinese. But why? Because if people are looking at patents and researching alien, secret, hidden, advanced tech, they're not looking at the stage. So what I call the mainstream media perspective is what you see on TV. Yeah, all indications climate change did it. But then if you go deeper into the weapons that may or may not exist arena, now you're in MSM plus because you accept it as a given that it happened as it appears to have happened. However, you disagree on the actual means. You think there's a second shooter, another cause. And I'm saying that additional layer of information is the plus. That's MSM plus. But it does not start at the premise that the media might be faking the whole thing first. Fake until proven real. My axiom at fake until proven real, if the event is extraordinary and has an obvious political agenda attached to it. And in this case it did. The instant it happened, I did a search. Maui, went to the very first articles, and it was like, this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the Industrial Revolution. Wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for capitalism and climate change. Like, they basically cover it in agenda immediately, just like they do with the school shootings. There's nothing that the left media doesn't like. There's nothing they enjoy more, I think, than catastrophes. And they say never let a crisis go to waste. Rahm Emanuel, I believe. But my point of it is, they see these as opportunities to advance, to bring their agendas out. And if there's an agenda ready to go, then in all likelihood, the incident is not organic. And some will say, oh, it just happened and they took advantage of it. Or maybe they knew it was going to happen, or they just attached their psyop onto something existing. And I'm saying, no, we got to start with facts. And what we see on the screen generally does not give us the whole story, but it doesn't mean that you can add on to it. It means you have to fact test the initial claims, which is again called hate speech these days. Okay, let us continue. I'm going through voicemails from the last couple of days. Again, my whole point is Dew. Now remember, Mountain Dew, Maui Blast, all kinds of predictive programming that would lead you to think that there's a sinister agenda. My point all along, predictive programming, whether it's on a movie or on a drink or something a celebrity says, that these are all things to lead you to accept something fake is real. That's the whole point of it. It doesn't mean it's real and that they're telling you they're going to do it. No, they're creating those neural pathways so you accept it as believable. But the do thing was also used for 9/11. So for years, instead of talking about the obvious video compositing, instead of talking about how media is possibly synchronized globally in certain instances, instead of revealing the true power behind the conspiracy that runs the world, that it's not a bunch of nations fighting for power, but that it's actually uniform, that there is a monotheistic religion that runs the world. Well, it's monolithic, not monotheistic. But instead of recognizing this and even considering that the planes weren't even there and that those people were all liars, what did they do? They chased all kinds of things: space lasers, thermite, tactical nukes. And I would even go so far as to say all the 9/11 lung victims, the ones who died of 9/11 disease, all fake, all crisis actors. All. I don't even believe that Pete Davidson's dad died at 33 in the Twin Towers, as they say that he did. Fake. Although he may not be in the know. Like, weirdly, I think he might not be in the know about it. You can find this Pete Davidson interview where he's talking about how doctors from like Columbia University would be following him around throughout his youth, testing him to make sure he believed his dad died on 9/11. I thought, well, maybe he was too young to be in the know, and they have to work especially hard with a celebrity like that to gatekeep the person so they don't in some way, give away the game because he's born in the cult. All right, let's continue. Going through my voicemails, there's a few of them here.
Hello. Does your penguin droid have a name? Penguin droid could be like Android.
Okay. Sounded like a wrong number. Possibly a right number. I'm going back weeks, by the way. We're back here mid-August.
Give me a call, 509-442-4477.
Okay, this guy's giving away his number. I'm not going to post it all. Deep into the mailbag.
Who did you call?
Hey, Tim, Synchro here. I'm just wondering if you're still distributing mugs that people have purchased. Give me a call back, 925-323-3622. Give me a call back because I purchased some mugs from you for.
Oh, okay, cool. Let me go ahead and just send you a message. Synchro Morpheus is the one who uncovered the metascriptor, the director of the Jordan Neely subway psyop. And there's quite a lot about that psyop worth talking about, because the predictive programming leading to the strangulation death of Jordan Neely in the subway was preceded by months and months of propagandizing on Twitter by right-wingers posting images of violence on the subways with the phrase, "Get out. Get out of cities. Get out, get out, get out." They all said it. I'm like, why are they all saying get out? I had noticed this for a while. Well, there's a movie, Get Out, where a guy that looks like Daniel Penny actually strangles somebody. And the director of that movie, Jordan Peele, directed Nope. Nope is based on his perception of the George Floyd fiasco and the spectacle it created. So what you have is this connection between Jordan Peele, the director, the George Floyd strangulation death, the Jordan Neely subway death, and the movie Get Out, and the right-wing programming for getting out of the cities on Twitter leading up to it. But it goes in a lot of fascinating directions, and a lot of that was uncovered by Synchro Morpheus, because what we're finding here is that when you eliminate the presupposition that predictive programming is coincidence, or that it's hints about what they're gonna do, then you can start looking at directors, and then you can actually see it for what it is, which again is preparing you for the fake news to come, because they bend our reality. We live in a news-bent reality, but in order for them to be able to bend it, they have to have you suggestible. And most of your entertainment, or I should say all of it, is there exclusively for that purpose. Like, it wouldn't go viral, and it wouldn't be part of mainstream culture if it wasn't serving that end. Okay, continuing. Got your message on the mugs. Live now. Okay, just letting him know. Got a response there. Okay, I think I got all the voicemails. I have one more from August the 13th. I'm going to try to get to these every night. I won't fall behind next time.
Hello, I got a message on here saying call Tim. Sir, this is Mark. It's been a real long time since I did anything on the radio, or I don't know what.
Okay, I already got his other message. I'm trying to get through all of them. I got like 10 more for real. I want to make sure I can catch up, and then I won't fall behind next time. Deep in the mailbag.
Hey, YouTube, it's Richie from Boston. I heard you talking about The Wizard of Oz, and I want to tell you, don't mess with the Lollipop Guild. Richie from Boston, and I am out.
All right. Yes. Good point there. The kneel, Jordan Neely, George Floyd, the kneeling, and the meaning of the kneeling, which really began with Kaepernick years before Derek Chauvin made it cool. Jay Digg says, Richie sounds kind of like a Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah, it sounded like a Richie from Boston impersonation by Rodney Dangerfield. Thirst says, I thought RFB died of vape AIDS. VAIDS. VAIDS was all the rage before COVID, if you remember. There were like 33 states that were banning vapes because people were dying of some lung condition. That must have been some kind of, I don't know what you want to call that, but some kind of drill in preparation for the big one. No, I always thought, though, that it was somewhat hypocritical that he would be in his Jeep warning us about chemtrails while he's vape boxing his Jeep. Like, you're basically in a chemtrail right now, and you're warning me about a chemtrail 20,000 feet above your head. But I'll be honest, this is how much of a dupe I used to, not dupe, but look, maybe I'm cynical now. I didn't used to be, because I used to think that Richie from Boston's voice, and I even think Alex Jones, I thought they both had voices like that from breathing in the chemtrails, from just going around and doing the work of calling it out and warning us, and they're just breathing it in like chem lung. I thought they had chemtrail lung, like it just that being a truther takes its toll, that you're just communicating such hard truths. You got truther voice or something. But now I know that it's probably theatrical, like gravitas. You get gravelly for gravitas. You know, it's World Wrestling Entertainment. I can't do it. It's too late now. You would know it's contrived. Okay, let's continue going through my... Oh yes, let's talk about this for a moment. I mentioned how I had watched Barbie, and afterward I needed some mind rinse. You know how you need eye wash when you see something particularly cringy? And so I'm like, I gotta watch something to get Barbie off my mind. And I checked out Cocaine Bear. And I have to recommend it. I think one of the best things about it is that it's just completely soundtrack driven. I don't want to proffer any spoilers here about what it means, but what it's about. I don't think it contains any significant predictive programming value. In fact, it's based on a true story. It's on a true story about some drug courier who drops his drugs in the middle of Tennessee or something, and a bear gets it. It's exceptionally violent, but if you do watch something like Barbie or something equivalent, even anything just that is an affront to your sensibilities, something like this, I think Cocaine Bear is the perfect chaser. Clean your mental palate. Anyway, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but I mean, not that there are any. It's just about a bear that is high on cocaine. I mean, you can figure it out. QAnoners wasted no time in finding some significance in Trump's post about his mugshot. Election interference, never surrender. Donald Trump. END, end. So you go back to Q-Drop from 11/19/2019, and you cross-reference it with the 4 indictments, the word end and mugshot, and it turns out that Q must have predicted that in 4 years, Trump would be indicted 4 times, but the 5th time would never come. Because what he posted was, there is no step 5, end. There you have it, END. Q said this would happen. My main problem with Q drops, or Q prophecy in general, is that they begin with the premise and they work their way back. Same thing with the Gematria people. Like, I love the pattern recognition, and I think that's valuable. I do think that there's a lot of valuable research in it. But the problem is when you start off that with the premise that, okay, I know what's going to happen here. You can almost prove anything if you have enough calculators or you're willing to entertain a little leeway. Okay, I want to play a clip here for anyone who thinks that Ice Cube is not in the club. You know how it's a big club and you're not in it? Like George Carlin was telling us, because George Carlin's not in it. No, George Carlin was rogue, right? George Carlin, comedian, truth teller. No way was he an insider. He was speaking truth to power, or was he? Could he have just been another cog? Here's from Wikipedia. I like it when a lot of people die. Now, leading up to 9/11, and this is in 2001, George Carlin was on a comedy tour, and the set was shelved because it was making jokes about exploding airplanes, Osama bin Laden, doomsday scenarios, natural disasters, and how much he likes high death tolls. It contained, again, hijacking, Osama bin Laden, exploding planes, death tolls, and this was canceled after 9/11. So this just makes me think, well, maybe he wasn't really, a rogue or an outsider, that he was also fed info. So here's another example. Ice Cube, again, he said he's not in the club. He went on Tucker Carlson, so he's one of you. Like that Oliver Anthony, he's one of you. Well, here's Ice Cube on a TV show called Are We There Yet? In like 2005 or something like that, where he talks about the monkey flu and how the lockdowns are fake.
What about this quarantine?
Yeah, how serious is this monkey flu? Not serious at all, because it's not true. See, the government likes to covertly test the emergency response system every once in a while to see how people mobilize, the authorities respond, and the public react.
Wait a minute, so this is just a drill?
Exactly. They do it all the time. You remember H1N1?
Yeah.
A drill. Remember SARS? Yeah. A drill. Y'all remember the bird flu? Was a drill too? No, that one was true. Don't mess with them birds. Well, what about my mom? Did they say she was a carrier?
Anyway, as it turns out, the whole thing with the monkey flu was a drill, but they are not allowed to know because they're not with the CIA or whatever he works with. So they have to stay under quarantine, and he gets to run off to Vegas. He's an insider.
Me, I'm out. I got the rendezvous with my unit up in the Nevada desert. We going to Vegas.
There you have it. Not in the big club. Ice Cube. Lean Dion says the laugh track to official PSYOP disclosure. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm hearing the laugh track, and I'm like, okay. They're laughing, but they're laughing in our faces is what they're doing. Typical. All right, let's continue. Going through my Twitter feed. We talked about Donald Trump's mugshot. Again, it's all just PR. You know how many people are going to want that kind of trophy? And it's not a trophy for the left. I mean, this is, to them, this is street cred. By the way, a little predictive programming throwback here. Fight Club, the building's falling. You know, there's the scene here involves the Century City Twin Towers. Same designer as the Twin Towers in New York, same architect. What's more, there's a scene where he's describing the agenda to reset everything. We're talking about Ed Norton's character. His name is Jack Sparrow in the book for Fight Club, where he's talking about gelatin wrapped columns in buildings, explosive gelatin to bring it all down. Now, in the months leading up to 9/11, there was a group in the towers doing some kind of art exhibit where they had to take windows out. They had to build balconies. They were filming people on the balcony from a helicopter. And this was leading up to 2001. The group was called Gelatin. Gelatin B. But gelatin. So again, explosive gelatin wrapping the columns, Twin Towers, Century City, Twin Towers, Gelatin B. You kind of see what's coming together here. So then you look into the project and you're like, well, okay, what was their project? Well, they were going to reveal it on 9/11/2001. Obviously, it got canceled. Or what you saw on 9/11/2001 with the 9/11 jumpers and the people in the building was Gelatin B's art project that they had created leading up to it. A lot of people are making fun of the Bollywood production, India going to space, and I encourage it. I really do. I know they use an animation to go along with the live feed to give you something to react to. I know that's not really meant to be it, but I'm not correcting people. Sometimes the misinformation is actually useful, and this is really not like honesty and truth and all that stuff. What is it? The first casualty of war is truth. And this is the theater of Psywar. And sometimes, they're news benders. They bend our reality. You can too. Unless you have some kind of conscience that would prevent you from bending the rules around a bunch of inveterate rule benders. You don't want to be the only one not playing by the rules, which are reality is what you can get away with. Breaking, new song by Oliver Anthony, Brink of War. I love how contrived it is. Like when they record it, they put bushes in front of the camera. I mean, it's good cinematography. The sleeping dog in the back. But it's a deep fake. Like, I'm going to say it, like he's basically a crisis actor. He really is. David Hogg is crying about the children who never existed because fake dead kids' lives don't matter. He's a crisis actor. Now, Oliver Anthony, he is in a similar way, kind of a crisis actor. I'm not saying that people aren't suffering or aggrieved in the way that he characterizes people in his song, but it's again, I don't think it's organic enough for me to take it seriously. Okay, continuing. Little drama. Marge Green shows up at Fulton Jail and Laura Loomer crashes her press gaggle. Yeah, there's some beef between Laura Loomer and Marjorie Taylor Greene. As staged and fake and contrived as the world stage is, you do have many insulated people working their way up the Illuminati dung heap who are indeed competing. I think competition is really what drives a lot of these power-hungry people. It's not that they just simply have a position of power, that they're in the elite and they rule over. I think there's competition within the elite, but there's uniformity. Like, they don't betray the mission. NASA's not going to laugh and say India faked it. NASA's not going to laugh at the Chinese space station and call it fake. No, they're all in on the big grift. Maybe that's what G stands for on the Masonic thing. The big grift. Some say it's geometry, it's God, it's gnosis. I don't know. There's another common denominator there. Someone points out there's an X on India's moonlander. That's got to mean something. Because the Apollo mission is a sun god. Saturn, we're talking about solar deities, phallic deities, obelisks flying into the sky. Well, the X is the cross, and the cross represents the male, and the moon is always a goddess. 13 lunar months. The number 13 and the goddess is Diana. You have the Artemis, but all these different goddesses, they all have the same basic sets of symbols, and the god is always symbolized by the cross. Okay, Elephant Tusks mentioned something here. He says that the grand architect is the demiurge. You're talking about Freemasonry. The great architect of the universe. Well, I just watched a series called The Darkest Light, Feria, The Darkest Light. And it's about a neo-Gnostic sex cult where 20-some people, 23 people, interestingly, die in a mine. And the whole thing is about how man is trapped in a cycle of death and reincarnation, and this cult is trying to break free, but that the world is in bondage. It's like souls are in bondage to the material realm that is under the control of some kind of, it's not God, it's some kind of landlord who happens to be something of an idiot who has to be outwitted, and that this is a prison realm. I mean, this is the whole idea of the Gnostic Gospels, but it's in this movie, Feria, The Darkest Light. But interestingly enough, one of the cult leaders is in the mine for 33 years, beginning in 1942, and he leaves after 33. So the whole idea here is, whenever we look at the symbolism that they present us in all of their psychodramas, you see those numbers, 42 and 33, always correlated with dark and light, falling and ascension. And it happened to be true in this Netflix film. It's just remarkable how consistent the symbolism is and the meanings are across the board. And the other point of it is, why? I had to point out that there's definitely a concerted effort here, I believe, with Netflix, not to entertain, but to program and educate. And it seems like there's some kind of mass education going on right now into neo-Gnostic, into the Gnostic cults and what they really teach. And that's actually what the OTO describes itself as. They call themselves a neo-Gnostic Templar cult that has the same core esoteric teaching. If you're looking at the screen, that is Donald Trump as Blue Steel, spelled S-T-E-A-L. It's a Zoolander reference. Elephant Tusk says, it's like RV Truth always says, truth in the movies, lies in the news. Well, that's kind of mostly true. It's more like, because, I like that expression. Here's what I will say. Anything they can fake in the movies, they can fake in the news. And they do reveal a lot in the movies. That's definitely the case. But they almost obfuscate more than they reveal. Like a lot of the predictive programming stuff in there seems like it's deliberately meant to send you into one of their controlled opposition paradigms. But he's right. If they can fake it in the movies, they can fake it in the news. That's one of the main tenets of auto-hoaxology. The fakeability question. And when it comes down to it, what isn't fakeable? You tell me. What can't they fake? Okay, I'm looking through a million pictures of Donald Trump's Blue Steel. Okay, who faked it best? Valid question. Who faked the moon landings best? I'm going to say it. Israel did it the worst. Have you seen Israel's lunar lander? It is like crop and drop. I keep thinking that there's a problem, that somebody's going to use better video editing technology and just one up everybody else, and the whole space program is going to be jeopardized because people are going to notice that it's fake all of a sudden. I keep thinking that's going to happen, and it never happened. It's never going to happen. They're all going to maintain the very same low standard, and it's all by design, if you ask me. So if you're wondering, this is India's lunar lander with Earth in the background. Small country, big dreams. One of the fakest of all. I don't think there's a faker looking lander than Israel's. Now, the Chinese one is Jade Rabbit, and Year of the Rabbit seems to be a connection there. Now, India's obviously pretty fake. America's, yeah, we all know. Angle of Elevation says, who has more power, Hollywood, DC, or the banks? Okay, interesting question. Because you know how they say you have the trifecta of power with the NWO? You've got London, banks, you got religion, Vatican, and you've got military, DC. Well, I notice here you didn't say Vatican. You said Hollywood. And this occurred to me before that Hollywood is the Whore of Babylon. You know how they used to say, oh, the Whore of Babylon is the Vatican, that's the church. Well, now I think it's clear that as media has replaced religion and supplanted it as the world view conveyor for the masses, I think it's more accurate to say that Hollywood is the Whore of Babylon. And this comports with everything we've said about Hollywood being the place that the pageantry of Mystery Babylon would be introduced to the masses. We've been talking about the various goddess archetypes they've introduced with Margot Robbie. So yes, we're looking at this triumvirate of Hollywood, which is mind control religion, DC, which is military, and then the banks. But who has more power? I'm saying that they're all part of the same capstone. Lean Dion says, London City, Vatican City, DC, all cities within a city. Osher says, Israel's always number one. Oh yeah, they're definitely the fakest. They get that trophy. They get the golden, we got the golden Hoggy for the best crisis actors. We need to have some kind of trophy for the best space fakers. Like maybe a Starman trophy that we can design. If someone wants to make one, we will start awarding I would say just excellence in space fakery. Like Mousegate. Maybe we should do a Mousegate trophy. Like the trophy could have that mouse. Like flexing like Mighty Mouse. But whatever it is, we need an award to go with it. I would even get it 3D printed. I will send the IPS Award for Excellence in Space Fakery, a trophy, and I will send it to X's headquarters. We'll make sure that Musk actually gets it. He deserves the recognition. People are so focused on his mind junk proliferation, they kind of forget that he's the leading purveyor of space junk. He's the guy that sent a car into fake space. Okay, let's continue here. I'm getting my scroll on here. A lot of memes just really hyping Trump's mugshot. It really dominated the news cycle, and it's not insignificant. Just given how image driven everything is. I mean, if he had a sad face, if his hair was messed up, it would have been the end of Trump. I think this picture it's basically a psyop, if you ask me. The mugshot is a psyop. Okay, going through some comments. Skill says, the chosen ones control Hollywood, the Vatican, the banks, and DC. I think you're wrong about that. Jordan Maxwell said, it's not the Jews that control Hollywood, it's the Druze. The Druze. Yep, the Druids. Hollywood is the holy wood, the wand of the Druids. And Hollywood is about what? Movie magic. So I think it's movie magic that rules the world. All right, let's see here. Going through comments. Let's go ahead and listen to this short clip here. This is Roger Stone. And I had to say, I called this in 2016. When I saw Roger Stone advising Trump, I said, Trump's going to go down like Nixon. And we've had our new Watergate. But listen to this. This is Roger Stone saying, oh, I wasn't part of the group that was trying to stop the certification of the election. So he inadvertently admits here on InfoWars that there was an effort to stop the certification of the election. I mean, this is quite a gaffe.
MSNBC is right back at it. They're doing the same thing to Alex Jones, as you know, trying to use guilt by association. Well, Jones was at the Capitol and this guy was at the Capitol, therefore nothing. This has all been very thoroughly investigated. I wasn't involved in the efforts to delay the certification of the.
That's it. I wasn't involved in the efforts. So there were efforts. So many slips like that, but it's all meant to happen. I don't think there's anything that would refute the fact that this is purely drama scripted. You remember the Mar-a-Lago raid, the certain number of days from COVID, and it's like it's on 8/8/2022, and it's like, to talk to Trump, text 8/8/2022. It's so super scripted that I'm just going to watch the lemmings marching behind it. Jay Digg says, Roger Stone also went on a profanity-laced tirade in a documentary that got released. Oh yeah, he's so mad because he's been saying the quiet parts out loud this entire time. Now this has got to be an example of media manipulation, and I think it's worth looking at. There's this story of this serial killer circulating right now. It's been going around for a while, and this serial killer who was killing young ladies by the beach happens to look exactly like Tucker Carlson. And when I say exactly, just Tucker without the makeup and Tucker with the bad hair day, or without his hair combed. But the same amount of hair, same face shape, just for comparison. And if you're not familiar with the story, his name is Rex Heuermann. He's the Gilgo Beach serial killer. And my contention is that what you're looking at here is a deliberate effort to smear Tucker. Basically a sort of visual libel that only the mass media can do. Where, yeah, they don't like you, they want to get back at you, but they don't want to be liable for attacking you, so they will create somebody that looks just like you and then scare the public so that you have all these young ladies are like, oh, that's a scary face, look out for that. And they see Tucker, and Tucker has already been connected with events like the Buffalo shooter. They said the Buffalo shooter was motivated by the online conspiracy theory of replacement theory as promulgated by Tucker. Then you have the Riddler on the new Batman movie, whose symbol is the question mark, who is the online radicalizing agent that causes some major attack in the movie. And he happens to use as a weapon something called a Tucker. So I'm just saying that there are these indirect ways that they can mischaracterize someone, and I think in this case they definitely decided to brand him. This person probably does not even exist. Yeah, Coyote Smoke and Mirror says Rex would be a foot taller and heavier, but subliminally there's a coincidence or a confluence. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a confluence. It's sort of like how Democrats used to, or probably still do, they dress up like Klansmen and they photobomb the Republican because the image is worth 1,000 words and it creates a lasting impression. And I think that's kind of the whole point. Like, it's not a coincidence either, speaking of, Trump and everything, that Biff Tannen is based on Donald Trump, and that's not a small deal. Because he wasn't based on Donald Trump it's not my opinion, rather. It's not like it's one of these coincidences, and it's not just merely predictive programming. The actual writer said Biff Tannen is based on Donald Trump. Like, they create these templates. And they can create a template for anything. And in this case, they're really attacking, I think, Tucker indirectly. Okay, continuing. Skill says, the mysterious death of John McAfee in Brian's to prison, Spain, with a large whack tattoo on his arm. Make of it what you will. Hey, look, there's plenty to lead you to think that John McAfee didn't die the way they said he did. And one of the things that makes me think that he didn't is his ex-girlfriend in that documentary said that he contacted her. And then two, he had faked a heart attack before in order to escape some country. So he already has some kind of experience with it. But I don't think that he is somehow Q, or that he has all the information. At any moment they're going to drop it all and the deep state's going to be taken out and they're going to drain the swamp. But somehow that story is getting recycled. Like somehow they're making hopium great again. And you have to say Trump is the world's greatest hopium salesman, because what they did is they attached the idea of Trump and Trumpism to a resolution to all these conspiracy theories, like all these things that they're, for example, the adrenochrome, child trafficking, chemtrails, mind control. They're going to end all that. I got into a bit of a conversation on Twitter about the Earth being not a ball, and M Helix XV said something about how, quote, "Are my questions too logical for your subjective bubble?" And I said, I think you could argue that the globe is a matter of subjective belief taken as an article of faith insofar as you've never been to space. Contrarily, globe skeptics live on and experience an apparently flat plane. So who is in or on a subjective bubble? And then he responded with, has anyone from the flat earth reconciled the issue with the azimuthal equidistant projection? And this is the map that shows the globe as presented from above, with the North Pole at the center, everything else splayed out from there. That's still a globe model. I mean, it's just a projection. It's not a flat earth model. And my response here was, the azimuthal equidistant projections have been falsely represented as a flat earth model when no such model exists. It is therefore a straw man argument which has successfully quelled curiosity, as it seems to be a slam dunk refutation. Because people will look at that and they'll say, oh, slam dunk, it's done. Just like they look at that Netflix documentary in much the same way. Like, okay, that solves it. It's definitely not a conspiracy because this is a one-shot, one-kill. But it's not really like that. And as I've been saying before, we were talking about the upcoming documentary on conspiracies that's going to involve us. And one of my points is that it's not an established article of faith or even something that is that can be presented as a model at this point. Because we're still talking about a media-filtered reality. We're not talking about a reality-tested model. These are two different things. And the worldview is the mental construct shared by the consensus. The world is the real objective thing, and it exists. And it's under attack. Our concept of it is under attack. They've decimated it. Mandela effect is actually a symptom of the disease, by the way. It's not a path to truth. Not that I have any particular issue with that, but it was an early indication of how any kind of organized and structured takedown of mass media by people calling out the fakery is going to be somehow contaminated with subjectivity. Just like objectivism got filtered through the TV and lost its claim to be objective, I would say a lot of, quote, trutherism has also fallen for that as well. That it has gone into the realm of subjectivity. Like the liars in mainstream media, like you can actually say it as a blanket statement. The mass media is a liar. It's the lie world order. But the truthers are equally subjective. They may be trying harder at being truthful. They may not be aggressively and wittingly lying, but they're no closer to, quote, objective truth. Here's another Mountain Dew. It says pitch black. So just a heads up, if we're going to look at predictive programming as a predictive model, according to the Mountain Dew predictive programming, we should likely expect that there's going to be some kind of blackout agenda coming as well. So just a heads up. And one more thing. Despite all the censorship, despite all the big tech kowtowing to the cult of the monolith that runs this place and monopolizes world view itself. We're going into print. They can't regulate that. And our print paper is going to be groundbreaking in the sense that it's reciprocal. It is hybrid. Every article, every single piece of art, anything that goes into it will have a QR code, a link that will allow you to download or access a digital version of it, a PDF or an MP3 version of it, just by clicking through. So you might just have a long article that you want to listen to, or maybe the musician that we're talking to in the article has some music there. You'll be able to download it. My point being, we have to be outside of their ecosystem, and once we establish ourselves as such, you'll see what I mean when I call this parallel media. Scorpio88 says, never wrong, love the stream. Thank you for joining. Diana South says, has a new book gone out yet? Actually, I have the tracking number. It's going to be here probably Monday. The hardback cover of Auto Hoaxology 101. The first, I think 18 or 19 people ordered the pre-order. But before I place a larger order of like 40 copies, I want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So once I see it Monday, I will be sending those out. I don't expect them to be full of errors. It has to exist as a hardback. If you didn't know, Auto Hoaxology 101 is my best effort to take all of our best approaches to media deconstruction and analysis and put it in a framework that could be adopted by anyone. So for example, the fakeability test. Not to mention the representing media itself as a worldview and what that actually means. And then of course, the mass media deconstruction here, it's not a matter of cherry picking subjectivity or saying what is real or what is fake from my perspective. You know, it's really about what we can claim to know versus what we can merely assert to believe. And these are important distinctions. Portal Complex says, got my book today, shipping fast AF. Now, yeah, the book's going to be available at the IPS HQ store. And right now, the hot link to get there is timosman.art, A-R-T. I was using art sales to get past the 100-star mark so I can get some better rates and everything, and I can ship internationally, and all the books will be sold through the store. So starting next week, we will have Auto Hoaxology 101 always available in the shop. All right, this has been great. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll be live tomorrow for Infinite Plane Saturn Day, where it's always open phones, open topics. And if you want to leave voicemails when we're not live, feel free to do so. The number on the screen, 505-349-0420. You can also reach me on Skype at Infinite Plane Radio and get on the newsletter, because next week we're going to be live with Woo's News, who is I think he is the preeminent auto hoaxer in the realm of January 6th. Nobody has taken it down at the nuanced level he has. He has synced up all the videos, time stamps, frame by frame. Again, Woo's News, that's going to be next week. Todd McLeod says, thanks for the show. Yeah, thanks for joining. Every person in the think tank is a part of this conversation/investigation. And what we're doing is not hate speech. If anything, it's too ivory tower for that. It's very philosophical. And I think what we're doing is something that there's a big vacuum and we're starting to fill it. And I think people will begin to recognize it, that there is a vacuum for unbrainwashed minds to congregate. Doesn't mean that we all agree or believe the same things, but we're using the same operating system. There's one more point about the Auto Hoaxology book, the textbook. It's not a belief system, like, oh, everything's fake. It's not a belief system in the sense of this is the new world order and this is the real truth they're hiding. I'm not trying to communicate any specific facts necessarily. I'm replacing the idea of belief systems with an operating system. Like, yeah, you can believe what you want, but here's the only way you can arrive at something that you can actually claim to know. Certain presuppositions have to be removed. It's a very important development, and we are spearheading it. This is One Eye Jack and the Shells, Mud Flood. After After this, it goes back to the 24/7. I don't understand how a mud flood can kill everyone but leave the buildings intact. Because gravity. They're inferring a whole lot from photos. We're just going to sink. And the only buildings that don't sink are the ones that have the foundations built down low enough, built before the last mud flood, maybe even several recent before, inferring a whole lot from photos.